Hi everyone, I'm Nigel Gordike, one of the organisers of the Wilmot Terry Fox Run. I'm really pleased to be chatting today with Clark Vallis from the Terry Fox Foundation. And Clark is the manager of Philanthropic Relations, so he's going to tell us a little bit about what he does. Hi Clark.
Hey Nigel, how are you?
I'm really well, thanks. How are you?
Good, I'm great, thanks for having me. So I work, as you said, as the manager of Philanthropic Relations, which is kind of an odd term, but really means that I look after various types of giving that are related to Terry Fox Foundation funding, but less so than being involved deeply with the run. So I work with lots of run participants and fundraisers and run organizers, but we also work a lot in the major gift giving world. We work a lot with certain corporate partners that join and add teams to the Terry Fox Foundation runs. And then also in the legacy giving and monthly giving world. So the people that give gifts in their estates and people who sign up to give gifts that are on a monthly basis, as well as some campaign planning. So like I said, really it's about making sure that there is a little bit more diversity in some of our revenue, so we're not 100% reliant on the runs, and using some of the goodwill we've built up over the last 40 years to engage people in as many ways as possible.
That's cool. So can you give us, so the money that comes from the Terry Fox Run is used to fund cancer research projects. Can you give us some examples of some of the projects that are being funded?
Yeah, absolutely. So just to give you and your viewers a sense of how many projects we have on the go at any given time, the year that ended last year, so the 2019 year, we had 47 funded projects, and we're usually in and around that number. And those projects range from projects that are 1 to 3 years in funding and that are a couple $100,000 in funding, up to projects that are millions of dollars in funding. So some of the ones that I'm most fond of as someone who's interested in cancer research are those that are focused on really hard to treat cancers and precision medicine. And for myself, I have an interest in child and family health. So the project that I like to talk about the most is Terry Fox Profile, which is one that we've shared with a lot of our participants and stakeholders for the last couple of years. We're coming up on 4 years of Terry Fox Profile, and that's a program that looks at providing new treatment options to children and young adults and infants with the hardest to treat pediatric cancers. So essentially the patients that they've run out of treatment options. So they've been told that they've tried a number of different things to attack and to resolve their cancers, but in many cases that hasn't worked, or they have cancers that are more aggressive than the average. So we want to look at those hardest to treat cancers and see if we can use some precision medicine techniques to really help solve those. And to go into precision medicine a tiny bit, what we say to keep it quick is precision medicine means the right medicine, or the right treatment rather, for the right person at the right time. So instead of giving someone who's got, let's say, liver cancer, everyone in the world gets the exact same liver cancer treatment, which is kind of the old way of thinking. We want to give those people the treatment that is most appropriate to them, their cancer, their age, the amount of time they've had their cancer, how aggressive it is. And so we can use kind of harness the power of genomics and molecular profiling to, instead of taking things and looking at them under a regular microscope, the analogy is that we're looking at them under the most high-powered microscope, which is the genetic one. And it allows us to see vulnerabilities and things in a person's cancer that we wouldn't have been aware of before being able to look at it at a genomic level. And that allows us to tailor the treatment. So instead of saying, again, you liver cancer patients all get the liver cancer protocol, we're going to try to, as often as possible, treat you as individuals. And so that's the sort of theme of Terry Fox Profile, that instead of taking all these kids with really difficult cancers and just dumping them with the same, chemo, radiation, or surgery that they would have had 20 years ago, we want to find a way to really drill down into what it is that makes their cancer unique. And so that's the spirit of the Terry Fox Profile program. But in addition, what makes it so special is that we're not just working in these little provincial silos. We're able to bring the whole country together, and we call it sort of the Team Canada of pediatric cancer research. So that means that we're not just one hospital or two or three. We're 20 plus hospitals and funding partners from across Canada. And the beauty of that is that we're able to harness the resources of different hospitals, and we're able to harness the great minds of these researchers, so that we're not relying on a couple of researchers who are brilliant. We're relying on dozens and hundreds of researchers that are the experts in their field and can take a look at a pediatric cancer patient's cancer. And instead of just one person looking at it in their lab, they can take a liquid biopsy of this cancer. They can do the genetic profiling that I mentioned, and then they can get the other experts on those specific cancers from 4 or 5 other hospitals, and they can all say, we've had similar patients with this, or some of the vulnerabilities in this cancer showed up in another patient's cancer that I treated, and we tried this. And together they can make this sort of collaborative diagnosis and create a really tailor-made treatment plan. So that's kind of a long-winded version of the Terry Fox Profile Program. That's been one of our largest investments. That was a $25 million budget over 5 years. And we've been able to bring in funding partners from all over Canada. So the Terry Fox Foundation and our runners and donors helped us to raise the initial $5 million that we could invest in this program. And that allowed us to essentially put our money where our mouths were and say, we're going to be the ones that lead this program, but we can't do it alone. So who else is going to join us? And that spirit of collaboration is also what really makes us unique as a research funding organization, that we are really committed to drawing the best people together as opposed to putting all of our eggs into one basket. And I'm trying to think of the good news I can share with you about Profile. So our initial goal with Terry Fox Profile, one of many goals, was to profile 450 pediatric cancer patients, which we've done, but also to set up the system so that when our first 5-year funding allowance is up, that the system is still there. So we're not just building something and then walking away and it crumbles. We're building something that will exist, hopefully in perpetuity, that kids and young adults and infants 10 years from now will be able to benefit from the system we built, but also the data that we've collected, which is really exciting. And I think it means that people who invest their cancer research dollars in the Terry Fox Foundation can be confident that they're looking after patients today. So the kids who are in Profile now they have a better chance for survival than they would have pre-profile. But also, we're setting up a system so that, a kid in 5 or 10 years who gets diagnosed with one of these aggressive cancers, we know so much more about the types of cancers that are affecting kids like this, and we have a much better sense of how to treat them.
That's fantastic. I mean,
yeah.
we as run organizers, we get to hear these kinds of stories when we come to the annual workshop.
Right.
But the general public doesn't have that opportunity. So it's fantastic you're able to share.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and there's, sorry, Nigel, I was going to say, if anyone listening who, like you said, doesn't have the chance to be at the Run Organizer workshop and hear from researchers, there are 2 great places to learn a little bit more about our research. Certainly terryfox.org is our main website, but the Terry Fox Research Institute, which is tfri.ca, there's a really great and new website that shows all of our different research projects, and they're broken down by things like location. So if you wanted to say, I'm only interested in research that comes out of New Brunswick, then you can click New Brunswick and you can go look at what Dr. Tony Ryman and his team are doing there. If you're only interested in things like liver or lung or breast cancers, you can drill down into the different kinds of funding. You can see the different projects that we have there, and there's lots of little write-ups, and it's a great short version of for donors to see just what it is that we're doing and to answer the question. So what does the Terry Fox Foundation do with my money? And what do people like you and everyone in Wilmot do to raise lots of money?
Has COVID-19 affected the ability to keep these projects running at the moment, or are they on temporary hiatus?
Yeah, so that definitely depends on the project. But for instance, one of the projects that we run, one of our large precision medicine programs out in New Brunswick, they use clinical trials as one of their sort of methods of treating people, and that's one of those things that you really can't send people into clinical trials in the same way that you could 6 months ago. So there are certain sort of clinical realities that are just much different for us when typically people go in to see their oncologist every couple of weeks or every couple of months. And right now, some of those programs have changed. So certainly the ability to run these large scale research projects has slowed down a little bit. And we have every hope and expectation that they'll pick up at the same pace, if not faster, when this is all resolved. But certainly it's thrown a monkey wrench into those programs as well.
Yeah, and people are obviously facing financial challenges at the moment. Is that affecting? Obviously, I'm sure it must be. How is it affecting the fundraising activities at the moment?
So I think the way it's affecting us, I mean, certainly we're still accepting donations, and we had a really small, sort of quiet but exciting campaign on April 12th, so the 40th anniversary of Terry starting his Marathon of Hope. But the way it's, I think, changed things for us is and not just for charities, but people are a little bit less certain So typically right now, people might be saying, oh, I'm signing up for my Terry Fox run and I'll make my annual donation, let's say in May. And right now, I think with people being less financially certain, they're maybe less likely to be able to say exactly that they can give X number of dollars. So I think people are being careful and maybe waiting a few months to see just how they've been impacted financially. So certainly we're like I said, we're still accepting donations, but it's a different reality right now. So fundraising has changed a little bit, and I think that's across the board. And I think what we're really looking forward to is seeing the ways that things change and evolve over the next sort of 2 or 3 months as we really get into Terry Fox season in September.
I mean, one of the reasons I'm doing these interviews is to help keep Terry at the forefront of people's minds by sharing what the money is used for, how the activities that are going on at the moment. Is there anything that we as run organisers or the general public can do to contribute to, other than financially? Is there anything else happening?
So I think in terms of, so you're right. In addition to financially, our feeling is that anyone who has the ability and has the inclination to give to the Terry Fox Foundation, I would say that your funds are needed in an uncertain year more than ever. But I think outside of financially, what we always want people to do is to think about Terry as often as possible and to think about cancer as often as possible, because even when you're not thinking about cancer, research still matters. And even when you weren't thinking about Terry 40 years ago, it might have been the middle of the night, he was still thinking about, I got to get up tomorrow and I got to take my steps and I've got to get out there and run. And so I think what's important right now is that whether there's a financial component to it or not, is to keep these sort of beacons of hope in mind. And for us, and obviously for you and I, Terry Fox is one of those undeniable beacons of hope. And that's what we want to be able to represent to people in a time that's financially uncertain. That's things like as simple as looking at the Terry Fox Research Institute website and seeing, what does my money go towards? I've never really looked, so now I'm going to check it out. And I've, perhaps if someone's ready to sign up for the virtual run coming up, maybe this is the time to say, I'm going to sign up, but I'm also going to be a little bit more vocal with my registration to some of my friends and family, because I really want to make sure that in an uncertain year that our voice is as loud as possible. And I think that looks different for everyone else, whether it's people posting on social media or putting up a lawn sign or registering for their run earlier than they might normally do. Those are the kind of things that not only help, like I said, to make our voice louder as an organization, but also help to provide some certainty, so we know that, geez, we're really on track to make sure that there's as many people signed up to, XYZ Terry Fox run as possible. And so I think that early registration matters a lot, and just telling your own community that you're taking part and why it matters to you.
Yeah, I've spoken to other companies and organizations locally here in Wilmot, and quite a few of them have changed the way they're operating right now, just because obviously with self-isolation, working from home, that kind of thing, and doing a lot of activities online now. And you just alluded to the fact that this year the Terry Fox Run is going to be some sort of virtual event. It's not going to be the huge community event that we're used to. Is there anything else that you can think of, that something maybe positive that's come out of the fact that we're facing this adversity at the moment, but we've had to change the way we operate?
Yeah, I do think so. And I think that the way that people allow their thinking to evolve when they're pushed to, what's that saying? The necessity is the mother of invention. I think that we're in a situation right now where everyone at a bare minimum is a little bit confused about what's going on, and that allows you to maybe think more openly about the best way for you to do things. And I think that everyone that takes part in the Terry Fox Run, I think, loves it. It's a special moment in the year for us all. It's something to look forward to. And it's been very, very steady, and it's been a constant for many of us for years and years. And I think it can still be a constant this year, but the way that we think about our support and our actions is going to be a little bit different. So I know that with my family, the way that we are choosing to evolve our run. So my partner and I have 3 sons, and we typically go to the run at Toronto and the beach, and it's great. But it's only the 5 of us and the other runners there. I don't go and involve my parents, and I don't involve my partner's family. But this year, that's something that we're allowing our thinking to evolve a little more, that because it's a virtual run, getting us all together actually seems a little bit easier, so that we can do the run in a way that works for all of us. And so the slogan that I know is being kicked around is "One day your way" for the Terry Fox Run this year, and that actually that to me provides a lot of excitement, that people will be able to still do something that matters to them, but they'll be able to put their own twist on it. And I just feel like that's a sense of excitement. So yeah, people can still do it, but it's going to be slightly more on their own terms. And I think in people thinking about what really works for them, there will be an added level of excitement this year.
And I think with the use of social media as well, it's a different way of connecting and sharing experiences. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting year.
Yeah, and like I said, just unpredictable, but I think still exciting.
Cool. Fantastic. Thank you so much for this, Clark. It's been really interesting hearing you share what's happening at the foundation and with research, and really do appreciate your time today. Thank you.
It's wonderful to chat. Thanks so much, Nigel.
Thank you.
80% of children diagnosed with cancer survive, but 1 in 5 will die of their cancer. To get that down to 0, we brought this group of experts together to figure out what is it at a genetic level that makes them so difficult to treat, and find new drugs that are able to target those tumors in a way that we can improve their survival. I'm David Malkin. I'm a pediatric oncologist, a cancer specialist at the Hospital for Sick Children in Toronto, and I'm also director of the Terry Fox Profile Initiative. Currently, the way that children and young adults are treated for cancer are using chemotherapy, surgery, and radiation. And while the success rate of those combinations is very good, the side effects and the late effects can be devastating. What Profile is aiming to achieve is that we are treating each child's tumor as an individual with a precise recipe based on the molecular profile of the tumor, with specific drugs that target only the tumor cells. And in so doing, much better success in killing the cancer and much better success in avoiding all the side effects. And that's the future of cancer therapy. What's unique about Profile is that it is making it possible that any child or young adult, regardless of where they live in the country, will have access to the newest state-of-the-art technologies to do genetic sequencing, and even more importantly, access to a whole array of new drugs which are changing the course of childhood cancer therapy. Our initial goal was to enroll 450 children over 5 years. We've actually now enrolled, when we combined all of the parts of the protocol, over 550, and a number of patients who've actually benefited from these new drugs. These would be children who had failed prior therapies where the tumor kept on coming back, and now we've been able to get them onto a drug where we're getting sustained responses and improving their quality of life and increasing their life.